The National Desk, America's News Now.
A hospital destroyed in Gaza has all sides pointing fingers at who they say fired the deadly shot. Jim Jordan fails in his first attempt to become Speaker. A second vote is now coming. Will it be more of the same?
Jim Jordan has a really steep hill to climb, and I don't think that hill has just gotten any less difficult. There was 20. I know there's folks that are saying, hey, I'm with him for one round, but after that, they're kind of like a free agent.
And a revolutionary treatment is having remarkable success for patients suffering from muscle pain to autism inside this groundbreaking procedure. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David, and as we come on the air tonight, devastation in Gaza City, an apparent airstrike hitting a hospital there, claiming the lives of a projected 200 to 300 people. Many people still said to be buried under the rubble. More than 3,000 people have been killed inside Gaza since Israel's war started 2 Saturdays ago. Hamas, which has blamed Israel for the strike, has called it an Israeli war crime. But the IDF, now reviewing the strike, told CNN this was definitely not an Israeli missile strike.
The intelligence that we have from multiple sources it indicates that the Islamic Jihad, another terrorist organization in Gaza, is responsible for a failed rocket launch that struck the hospital in Gaza.
Meanwhile, NBC News is reporting that a senior Hamas official told them Hamas is prepared to release all civilian hostages within an hour's notice if Israel ends its airstrike campaign over Gaza. Yesterday, Hamas released a video of one of the Israelis taken hostage, Mia Shem, and you can see pictures of her here. NBC also reporting Hamas would be willing to trade Israeli soldiers held as hostages in exchange for all the Palestinians who are being detained in Israeli jails. Israel has not yet commented on the details of that offer. Meantime, at this hour, President Joe Biden now in the air on Air Force One headed to the region, though his scheduled meetings with Arab leaders are now in question. Both Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and King Abdullah of Jordan have canceled their planned meetings due to the hospital strike. The president was also scheduled to meet with leaders of Egypt and Israel. Still of top concern for Biden, brokering a deal to get desperately needed aid into Gaza. Today, the United Nations World Food Program renewed its call for access to aid in the Palestinian territory, where hundreds of thousands of people fleeing violence have been blocked from getting food, water, and medical supplies. The program estimates that Gaza's current food stocks will run dry in less than a week. And as President Biden heads to Israel following a pledge of full support, some on Capitol Hill want him to be more clear about what that means for Iran. The National Desk's Christine Frizzell joins us with the details.
As Israeli troops prepare for a potential ground war in Gaza, a new threat from Iran. Warning the resistance forces will lose their patience. No one will be able to stop them at that point. It's just the latest show of support from Iran to Hamas. This video, released by the Israeli Defense Forces, shows a cache of weapons left behind in Israel by Hamas militants, which some weapons experts say have clear links to Iran.
Iran not only funds the terrorists, they feed the terrorists, they arm the terrorists, they plan the terrorist attacks.
On Capitol Hill, a group of Republicans calling for the White House to do more, though top leaders, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken and President Biden himself, have vowed full support to Israel.
What is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran?
Don't.
Don't come across the border. Don't escalate this war.
That's right.
Some senators say he hasn't gone far enough.
I'm begging the Biden administration to be clear. Just don't say don't. Spell out what happens if Hezbollah is used by Iran to try to expand this war and destroy Israel.
GOP lawmakers told us they want the U.S. to completely cut off any funding from coming into Iran. But they also want the Biden administration to give a more forceful response. We asked if that could include U.S. military involvement.
I don't think you take any option off the table. I think you have to be prepared to respond.
with Hamas launching more rockets toward Israel. And Israel's attacks already decimating Gaza. The cost of war is now on full display. And tonight, a group of about 20 senators is calling on the Biden administration to permanently freeze that $6 billion that was temporarily unfrozen as part of that prisoner swap last month with Iran. Now, the Biden administration says that money is in a Qatari bank and that Iran does not have access to it. And yet still, those calls to have it frozen are on repeat here on Capitol Hill. Amira?
And Christine, with President Biden headed to Israel, what is the hope there on Capitol Hill?
You know, I've spoke to some senators today, and a lot of them, especially Republicans, say the hope is that President Biden lends his unconditional support to Israel. But that is not what a lot of others say. Some Democrats say, you know, there needs to be some conditions. There needs to be some red lines. We've already seen what the bombs in Gaza have done to that region. A lot of it simply flattened, and people are worried here on Capitol Hill, frankly, that it could hurt the U.S. reputation in the world if there are no conditions, if there's unequivocal support for Israel.
Where will the lines be drawn? That's the question. Christine Frizzell live for us in Washington, D.C. Thank you, as always. And this just in, the House will hold its next speaker vote tomorrow morning at 11, according to Congressman Jim Jordan. This after he failed to get enough support to secure the gavel today. Jordan has been running back and forth between the House Majority Whip's office and the Speaker's office, holding meetings. He's trying to get more support from his Republican colleagues, 20 of whom voted for somebody else for Speaker. Jordan's office originally thought there were about 8 to 10 holdouts before the vote. Some of the holdouts say they may vote for him in the next round, while others say they'll never vote for the Ohio Republican. Meantime, new details from investigators in that Colorado train derailment. Preliminary findings show a broken rail is what caused the accident there. The steel bridge collapsed on Sunday when 30 cars of a train hauling coal derailed while crossing Interstate 25 just north of Pueblo. A 60-year-old truck driver who was driving a semi-truck, he died in that accident. I-25, by the way, is the main north-south corridor through Colorado, so it's expected to remain closed for several more days as crews clear piles of debris from the site. And former President Donald Trump, he's back in court, a New York court, in his civil fraud trial. He's fighting allegations that could disrupt his real estate empire, with claims that he and his company deceived banks by overvaluing his assets to make better deals. Trump continued today to deny wrongdoing, saying the facts were on his side and that the lawsuit is all political in nature.
This is just a railroad job. It's a witch hunt with no jury, and it's a runaway freight train, and it's a disgrace.
Trump was also scheduled to be interviewed under oath today by the FBI for a different case. Attorneys for former FBI official Peter Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page set to lead the deposition. Strzok has accused the DOJ of wrongful termination because of Trump's anger over the Russia investigation. He and Page are also suing over the release of their text messages. And the prime suspect in the 2005 disappearance of Natalie Holloway is expected to plead guilty tomorrow to federal extortion and fraud charges. While authorities could never prove Joran Vandersloot killed Holloway, prosecutors say that in 2010, Vandersloot tried to extort $250,000 in exchange for information of the location of Natalie Holloway's remains. Holloway's mother made an initial payment of $25,000, which turned up false information. Vandersloot has been in the U.S. since June. He'll be sent back to Peru, where he'll serve the remainder of a 28-year prison sentence for murder before he can serve out his U.S.-based sentence. Meantime, convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh may get a new day in court. The South Carolina Court of Appeals has sent his murder case back to circuit court for a hearing on Murdaugh's claims of jury tampering by Colton County Clerk of Court Rebecca Hill. On September 5th, Murdaugh's attorneys alleged Hill deliberately worked to secure a guilty verdict against Murdaugh by scheming to remove a juror perceived as sympathetic to Murdaugh. Meantime, a possible delay in the murder trial of a woman who is suspected of shooting and killing a well-known cyclist. This after the woman attempted to flee authorities for a second time. Caitlin Armstrong, accused of murdering Anna Mariah Wilson last year, is back in custody after she escaped during a medical appointment. This was the second time she had escaped. Police say the attack on Wilson was motivated by a love triangle, a romantic relationship between Wilson and Armstrong's boyfriend. The originally scheduled trial was for later this month. Some legal experts say they now expect a delay as prosecutors prepare new arguments, also adding that they expect elevated security.
The fact that she fled earlier and has apparently a federal detainer for federal charges, all those things together, I can see a very heightened security and something that's a lot more unusual than normal.
In Las Vegas, former police officer Caleb Rogers has been sentenced to 12 years in prison, found guilty of stealing nearly $165,000 in 3 casino robberies. They all happened within the span of 4 months last year, including one where he was armed with a department-issued weapon. Prosecutors said Rogers was a gambling addict who grew desperate under a crush of debt. Meantime, Alec Baldwin, he could be in legal trouble once again. New Mexico prosecutors want to recharge Baldwin with involuntary manslaughter in the fatal shooting on the set of Rust in 2021. Prosecutors say additional facts have come to light, and they'll present evidence to a grand jury within the next 2 months. Prosecutors dismissed a previous involuntary manslaughter charge against Baldwin back in April. And a manhunt continues for 4 inmates, including a man charged with murder who escaped from a Macon, Georgia jail. The men climbed from a broken window and through a cut fence and escaped in a blue Dodge Challenger getaway car. Authorities vow they'll get the men back in custody. A $1,000 reward is being offered for information. Meanwhile, the escape is spurring calls to address the rundown jail's condition. Well, coming up, more auto workers are getting laid off as the strike continues. New numbers reveal how much the work stoppages are costing the economy. Then a medical practice in Tennessee is producing life-changing outcomes for patients. The cutting-edge therapy they're using for ailments from back pain to autism. And then security leaders are warning about more online scams as the holiday season approaches. We asked an expert for tips to stay secure. We are back with those tips in just 90 seconds. Ford Motor Company has laid off 700 employees at a Michigan electric vehicle plant, citing supply chain shortages. They've also laid off another 500 at other plants on what they called upstream effects stemming from the UAW strike. Since the start of the work stoppages a month ago, Ford has let go of nearly 2,500 workers. Meanwhile, according to the Anderson Economic Group, the UAW strike has cost the economy $7.7 billion in its first 4 weeks. The report states the automakers have seen a loss of almost $3.5 billion. Total wages lost equal $3 billion, while dealers and customers are out $1.2 billion. The strike is in its 33rd day. The 2019 strike against GM reached a tentative deal on the 31st day and formally ended after 40 days. Well, new retail sales data from the Commerce Department shows Americans are not letting inflation slow down their spending. Many analysts predict shoppers will keep up that spending through the holidays. But as national correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports, it's not doing any favors for the Federal Reserve's fight against inflation.
American shoppers once again catching economists by surprise. September retail sales growth was more than twice as high as expected, up 0.7% from August, according to the Census Bureau, outpacing September's monthly inflation rate of 0.4%. A newly released Deloitte survey of more than 4,000 U.S. consumers shows shoppers have come to expect higher prices.
We're seeing about 72% of the shoppers are expecting to see inflation carry forward and expect to see higher prices.
Robust consumer demand, not entirely good news for Wall Street, as it could make the case to the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer in order to bring down inflation.
This is the first year we're actually seeing spend exceed what it has been since 2019, 2018. Shoppers are indicating like, hey, I'm going to spend more this holiday season, but they're also aware of the fact that their dollars don't go as far as they used to in this inflationary environment.
One sector hit harder by current conditions, housing. The National Association of Home Builders says mortgage rates well above 7% are to blame for plummeting builder confidence and slowing buyer traffic. An entirely separate threat to the economy could come from rapidly developing AI technology. At least that's the warning from Gary Gensler, chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission. In an interview with the Financial Times, Gensler says a financial crisis in the next decade is nearly unavoidable without AI regulation. His worry is firms basing decisions on the same AI models will engage in herd behavior, undermining financial stability. In the near term, though, optimism is picking up. The latest quarterly survey of economists by the Wall Street Journal shows a new consensus: the U.S. is likely to avoid a recession. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Well, U.S. regulators are looking into General Motors' self-driving vehicle division called Cruise. Officials have received reports claiming the robo-taxis hit pedestrians. This comes after Cruise said it would reduce the number of robo-taxis in San Francisco due to crash reports. Regulators are trying to figure out the scope and severity of the problem. New data shows President Biden raised more money for his campaign in the third quarter than any of the Republican candidates. The total was more than $71 million, with Biden's team ramping up hiring and advertising. Former President Trump, meantime, he was in second at $24.5 million. Ron DeSantis was next, followed by Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tim Scott. The U.S. is placing more limits on the types of advanced semiconductors American companies can sell to China. The White House wants to restrict China's progress on artificial intelligence, saying this intelligence could help China improve surveillance or crack top secret codes. Companies that want to sell China advanced chips will have to notify the government or get a special license. And new details: a stem cell therapy practice in Tennessee is getting rave reviews and miraculous outcomes from back pain to autism. The proof is in the results. The National Desk's Dennis Ferrier has the story.
Mark Lewis's lumbar 4 disc was jamming into his spinal column. He was told he needed serious back surgery or he could lose bowel and urinary control. He was told it would take 6 months to recover, and he would have a life-changing loss of flexibility. We say this as you see him clearly functioning with no back pain.
I'm really active, and to have somebody say, yes, so you're going to be disfigured now, is like, oh, and then to be able to experience the chronic degradation of my lifestyle And then to have it within a few weeks just like turned around, and to wake up and go, I slept. It was, yeah, there's nothing like that.
The therapy generally involves taking stem cells out of your hip and mixing it with your blood parts to create a potent stem cell cocktail. It is then injected or IV'd back into you.
We like to talk about how it can help autism to arthritis, is what we say around here. So all things musculoskeletal, any chronic disease, we're talking heart, lung, neuro things, it can help so much out there. Because all of it's about inflammation, right? So
that's a bold claim, but then again, you haven't met Tristan.
Oh, this is from Across the Spider-Verse.
A young man with autism.
He gets by just fine day to day. He has a job, he has friends. He struggles socially. He struggles making eye contact.
No Way Home?
No Way Home.
That was pretty cool.
That was
After stem cell therapy, his family started noticing huge differences.
I'm always a Spider-Man fan till the end.
My husband called me in tears because Tristan had called him just to chit-chat, just to see how his day was going, and that's nothing that Tristan's ever done before.
Never done before.
No.
And remember that eye contact? Not only did we witness him making eye contact with Mom, he made eye contact with me, a total stranger.
And you don't realize what you're missing until you get it. And so for us, you're getting these little moments that you never knew you always wanted. It may not seem much to a lot of people, but for us in our community, in the autism community, it's huge.
Mark Lewis wanted to see in black and white what stem cell therapy had done for him, so he got another MRI of his back. You don't have to be a radiologist to see the difference.
That disc almost looks normal. It's not perfect, but almost looks normal. And you just now have not only the subjective proof of how he feels and what he's doing, but you also have the objective truth of seeing that disc and how it looks so much better.
It's not magic, but it's magical.
Leaving us with hope. Well, coming up, a tech executive shares simple steps you can take to avoid scams when you start your holiday shopping. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter most to you. We are taking the pulse of America.
A typical Saturday youth football game became anything but. A scuffle between the Jolton Vikings and the Greenbrier Bobcats had coaches running onto the field. Yellow flags thrown. About 15 seconds later, you can see a man in a tan jacket stepping onto the field during the game. He's escorted off. At the end of the game, the man returns.
He's got a gun!
Parents frantic, calling 911 after they say that man now has a gun. In this video, you can see the man in a tan jacket get into it with another man, and the man with the tan jacket keeps his hand in a bag he's holding. Greenbrier's commissioner says the man is now banned from all league games, and organizers are meeting to discuss the next steps.
Cruising. It's a long California tradition for showing off all the cool tricks, tech, and add-ons you've done to your car.
Kind of a combination of art form, but it's also a combination of like culture and, you know, the history of our city and our state. You get folks that take a lot of pride in their vehicles and how they fix them up.
Currently, it's banned in Fresno, but that might be lifted soon following a new bill signed by Governor Gavin Newsom. Fresno City Council member Luis Chavez says when he grew up in the Central Valley, Fresno was known for cruising. He's been pushing for Fresno Police Department and the city to lift the ban.
You may have noticed more online retailers are already trying to get you to spend your money. Despite the holiday season still weeks away, hackers are hoping you'll slip up as you hunt for those big deals, as a Meta executive warns.
You've got your shopping list to make sure you get gifts for everyone. You're trying to organize everything and you're moving quickly. That's what the bad guys are counting on.
He shared some simple steps to help you avoid becoming a victim. Turn on two-factor authentication, use a password manager, review the seller's profile, reviews and ratings, and use secure transaction and payment methods. All really important stuff there. Well, coming up, the new boarding process that United Airlines is putting into place to help prevent slowdowns in their aisles. Stay with us. Frequent flyers, listen up. United Airlines is changing its boarding process to help things go a little bit more smoothly in the boarding process. In an effort to tackle bottlenecked aisles, people with window seats, they will be able to board first now, then passengers in the middle seats, then those with aisle seats. It's also going to let pre-boarding, award tier, and higher seat class customers get on first. United plans to start this all on the 26th of this month, just in time for the holidays. That's it for this edition of the National Desk. Thanks so much for joining us.